we've been talking a lot about furlough on the programme because more than 7 million people are on the government payroll under the furlough scheme. About 100,000 applied for the self-employment version on the day that it launched last week. But despite all of this financial support, some people are still slipping through the net. This morning, we want to look at where some of those holes are and how individuals are coping. Matt Griffith is Director of Policy at Business West, the Chamber of Commerce for the West of England, from Gloucestershire down to Cornwall. He explains some of the issues facing his clients.
In March and throughout March, you had some really big announcements around government support and quite big sums of money. But within a couple of weeks, it was quite obvious that some significant parts, particularly the small business community, were falling through them. So we noticed that a lot of people who are hiring workspaces, so people who were paying business rates but were doing so as part of their rental package rather than directly, weren't eligible for grant support, despite having quite high outgoings like rent and equipment hire and those type of things. But we were also finding a lot of small businesses who were limited companies and therefore weren't also eligible for the self-employment support. And more than you would think, actually, there are a lot of people who are incorporated. And these could be people who are sandwich delivery people who wash windows. It's quite widespread.
Two issues flagged there. Businesses unable to claim a £10,000 grant because they're in a co-working space, and directors of limited companies unable to claim self-employment support because they're paid with dividends. Now, the government has changed the rules on co-working spaces, but it still doesn't apply if you're self-employed. And the campaign for directors continues. We've had more than 340,000 people signing a petition to change the policy. Now, according to some official figures, about 700,000 people are sole directors of limited companies. And the government has said all along it's really difficult to figure out whether or not people have received dividends in lieu of wages or as a return on an investment. And the self-employment support can't be claimed if you took that career path recently because you need to have filed a tax return in 2018-19. Let's get into a couple of those things now. Paula Castle is a tattooist who runs the Black Sheep Studio in Bristol. You found another big gap. What's your situation?
Hi guys. So I would fall under the retail, leisure and hospitality sector. Having been, I actually closed my doors a week before the mandated lockdown. As soon as we were advised against non-essential travel or contact, because tattoos are not an essential item, and the stipulation with the grant for the retailers is that it's paid via your rates bill, kind of in a reverse from the local authority. And I can't access that because I pay my rates via my rent, as you heard Matt talk about. So I don't pay any less than somebody who would pay rates. In fact, if I had this building leased commercially on my own, I would be rates exempt because of how small it is. So I actually pay rates, whereas I wouldn't if it wasn't in a creative shared workspace. Then when the top-up grants were released, I was obviously really excited and thought, brilliant, this is going to be me. I'm going to be able to access this fund to pay my rent and my business costs. Only to then find out that they'd stipulated that it wasn't available to the self-employed or sole traders.
Now, you do get a self-employed income support grant, though, is that right? How much are you getting?
So I did mine this week and I got awarded £1,851, which is supposed to cover me for 3 months, which, don't get me wrong, any help is great. I'm grateful for it. But it is taxable. And it's also based on my profit, not my turnover, which, my turnover, if you take out my business expenses, then you're left with my profit. So it's great to help me pay my personal bills, but it's not going to help me pay my business bills. And when you have two other people who rely on you to have a place to work from, you don't want to have to choose between paying the rent for the home that you live in or the rent that covers your shop.
So, yeah, I mean, Paula, we're effectively a one woman band. I mean, how are you actually coping? 1,800 isn't a lot. Presumably, your landlord still wants his rent, even though you're closed. So,
Yeah.
how do you get by?
I mean, I'm in my mid to late 30s now. My partner is in his early 40s. He's thankfully furloughed. However, we both had been saving quite hard for a while in the hopes of buying our first home together. So we did have some savings to fall back on, but it's really upsetting to then have to take money out of your Help to Buy ISA that you can't put back in. The scheme isn't available anymore. And you know that you're losing not just the money that you're taking out, but 25% extra on top of that. And, you know, the clock's ticking. I'm old enough now that starting to worry about getting a mortgage is an issue.
And really briefly, Paula, have you looked at taking out a loan? I'm guessing you don't want to have extra debt piled on.
I did initially try and access the CBILS loan, and unfortunately my turnover wasn't high enough. So I kind of sat in that low, just underneath the threshold. I could absolutely access a bounce back loan. And if it comes to it, I will do that. But all I want is access to the retail grant that I should be getting.
Paula, thank you so much indeed. Hopefully we'll see tattoo parlours start to reopen towards the back end of the summer.